Hello and welcome to the First Blast. This is Mariam Khan, and today on the First Blast we're covering a topic very relevant to all of us.
Assalamu alaikum, I'm Sonia Rahman Qureshi, and yes, today we will be discussing runaways. Basically, we like to cover in every single show different aspects of a single subject. Today we will be covering the psychological, maybe the violent, the psychiatric issues behind people who actually choose to escape from their safe haven called home, or from shelters, or from their jobs. So I think it's a really interesting show, and it's also, I mean, to me it's very fascinating that I can't imagine, having come from a very, very safe home and a very loving home, for people to be reaching that level of desperation.
Yes, the actual act of running away does sound very desperate, and we will find throughout the course of the show that it might be economic reasons, it might be psychiatric reasons, what you were saying. However, you would be, I think I read somewhere that one just sometimes decides to run away.
They've had enough.
Yeah, or just to kind of get attention. So yes, there is a very serious aspect of it, but also
even if it's just for attention?
On a very light note, I, as a 10-year-old, also packed a bag.
Really?
So, and there was you should see our house. It's the safest cocoon there is ever in the world.
But
so,
I mean, even if you're saying, even if it's just, you know, running away or whatever, like you said, I think at some level it is a cry for attention, or at least it is sometimes, if it's a little more serious than that, it is a cry for help.
Oh yes, oh
so
definitely.
well, let's not talk more, Hina.
But for you to actually take a look at what is coming up in the show, you need to go see the sneak peek, and in complete TFV fashion, we've decided to give in all possible perspectives that we can come up with. So go take a look at this.
Absolutely. Go have a look and come back really quickly. We have a great show ahead for you.
We'll be talking about runaways today.
The runaway is because of environmental reasons.
It's sometimes potential threat that makes them do this.
What causes this desperate act?
Is it just depression? What are the substance abuses that runaways get into?
There is physical abuse, verbal abuse going on in the family.
What can we do?
The different problems that they can get into: physical, emotional, psychological.
They become male prostitutes.
You don't really realize what you're going to face after you run away.
Alcoholism, sniffing glue, they get into bad company.
Welcome back. As you saw in the sneak peek, we'll be talking about runaways today. And what kind of runaways am I talking about? We on the show today are not talking about that harmless, you know, whim that you had, or I had as well as a child, of actually running away to a better land somewhere where, you know, things were...
Yeah, we're digging deeper in today's show. We are trying to understand what it takes for a person to actually leave the safety of their home or their comfortable environment to escape to a place which is completely unknown, and in the case of children especially, into a world that is not very forgiving and is not very kind. Also, I think before we rattle on and on about it, I think it is excellent to talk to an expert that has specially flown in from Lahore.
Somebody who has joined us
today.
A lot on the set.
Absolutely. So we would like you to meet Dr. Sadaqat, who is the project director of Runaways. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having me on the show.
My first question to you, Dr. Sadaqat, will be like, who are runaways?
Runaways are our family members, and a lot of children, adults, wives and husbands are running away, and it is because of the toxicity of somebody living in the same household, because of which people run away. And actually, people who are toxic, they don't know sometimes that they are being toxic, and they don't mean it. But if somebody doesn't mean it, does not mean that he does not hurt another person.
So what is a toxic personality?
A toxic personality is like a personality which produces pain for other people. Okay. They are inadequate people, they are exploitative, they are damn right cruel sometimes, and they don't know. They are very well-meaning people apparently, but they keep causing pain to another person. Sometimes parents are toxic. It is very strange to say. Sometimes spouses are toxic, and they cause pain to another person living under the same roof, and the person becomes very, very perturbed, irritable, and sometimes he wants to run away.
So coming back to the issue of runaways, can we categorize them? Is there categories of runaways or types of runaways?
There are many types of runaways.
Okay.
Like there are runaways which are happening because of biological reasons. People have certain kind of hormones, neurotransmitters which build up, and there is a repetitive type of runaway.
So it is built in our system to run away.
Sometimes it is built in our system to run away.
Oh.
Sometimes the runaway is because of environmental reasons.
All right. And
That's exactly what I was going to ask you, that you were saying something very, very interesting, that it is toxic personalities within a household or a space that can make another individual run away. What are the other causes? I mean, I understand marital, maybe abuse. Is it just depression? Is it just, you know, maybe some, like you said yourself, it could be a chemical imbalance in the person, a depression. Are there any other causes as well?
Drug abuse is the most common cause, because of which there is a lot of pain generating in the household. Alcoholism is one, and there is physical abuse, verbal abuse going on in the family. And runaways has many other varieties too. Sometimes it is pushed away. Like if there is a constant source of pain in the family, children are pushed away to the boarding schools. Women go to micas. So there are runaways under disguise also.
Oh, we
People
never think of
switch
them as
jobs.
runaways.
People switch jobs from one place to another. The real reason is that they cannot tolerate a certain situation or a position. So they keep changing jobs. So that is very deleterious to their progress, their careers.
can we spot a runaway from a distance as such? I mean, are there telltale signs leading up to this particular event?
If the runaway is repetitive, then there are definitely telltale signs, and family can recognize those signs. There is a particular body language, there are definite facial expressions, there is tone of voice. Sometimes there is a communication gap, sometimes there are slips of the tongues, and we can recognize looking at somebody who is about to run away.
Dr. Sadaqat, what are, because I think we should give out a reality check to people as well, that though you are escaping from an environment that you think is evil or bad, a lot of times you're running into something that's even worse. So what is generally the consequences of let me start by saying children that run away?
Children run away because of the pain they have at their household. And
No, but even once they've suffered the pain in the household, what do they suffer once they leave that household,
out of
when
the-
they're out of the
it
house?
is very dangerous for children to run away. Children under the age of 12, they run away very, very commonly, and they fall prey into the hands of wicked people. They become male prostitutes. Sometimes they
Pushers.
start using drugs. They sniff glue and all these things.
If I asked you the same question but for adults?
It is true for adults also, that if they go away from their homes, they are likely to abuse drugs, and they are likely to fall prey to criminality, and they are also involved in certain activities which are antisocial, and they are now misfit. They cannot come back. If somebody stays on the streets for more than 2 weeks, he is definitely a person who would not fit in the household again.
That's a very interesting point, that you're saying they will not fit into the household again. Now, I know that our society has a lot of discrimination between men and women, that if a man runs away, he'll still come back, and everybody will be like, oh, our son's come back, or he's come back, or a wife will be like, at least my husband's back home. But if a wife or a daughter, a woman runs away, I mean, I'm sure she's not accepted back into the family household the way she was before. Is there truth in that?
The facts and figures tell us that more men run away, but less women run away from home. But the adverse part of it is that more men come back and very few women come back, because they cannot fit into the family structure again.
Absolutely. And what are the reasons for that? They're just not accepted back?
Because they have gone far away from the family structures. They have violated the family values, they have violated the society's norms. So it is a very, very difficult proposition for a woman to come back and fit into the same household again as compared to the male counterpart.
With that, we'll go on a short break. So please don't go away. It's going to get more and more interesting, and catch you again in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back. Up till now, we have been discussing certain symptoms that we should watch out for in individuals who have the tendency to run away, what prompts them to run away, and what kind of personality traits they define. I think now, if you keep watching us, you will be interested to know what are the substance abuses that runaways get into, the different problems that they can get into, physical, emotional, psychological. So as I was asking, Dr. Sadaqat, thank you for staying on with us. I would like to ask that why is it so prevalent in runaways that they fall to substance abuse, alcoholism, sniffing glue, they get into bad company. Could you explain that a little bit?
This is basically a double jeopardy because on the one hand, the people who belong to households where alcoholism and drug abuse is already existing, occurring there in the family, they run away most often than other society members. But on the other hand, when they run away from home, they just fall prey to the same thing they were running away, because on the streets there are drugs, there are alcohol, there are marijuana, there are so many things they fall prey to.
Absolutely.
What is 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐻 doing to help runaways? What is your strategy?
𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐻 is basically a facility for the treatment of alcoholics, but as a social service of 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐻, it has established a helpline, a 24-hour toll-free helpline for the people who have the tendency to run away, who like to run away, and the family who worries about a family member who wants to run away again and again.
And what is this helpline, Dr. Sadaqat?
The number of this helpline is 0800 22786, and this helpline works 24 hours a day.
And on an average, how many phone calls do you receive?
We receive about 50 calls a week. There are very few calls, there are not many calls, because people feel a lot
They're
of shame
scared,
because of this issue is full of shyness, and they don't feel much courage to talk openly on the helpline. And whenever they talk, they also like to be anonymous all the time, and they want some help in the shape of a consultation.
Is there a difference between missing people and runaway people? We were talking about it. Is there?
There is a lot of difference between missing people and runaways, but when somebody runaways, the family panics like as if they have been kidnapped, or if they are the missing people. There is a lot of difference between a person who runs away. He takes the responsibility of his needs and protection as compared to a missing person or a kidnapped person. So family should never panic when somebody runs away, and they should think about what to do. They should talk to a professional first, and then they can develop a strategy to bring their loved one back to
What
their
is
home.
the success rate of people actually coming back, people who run away?
Normally, a runaway comes back. It is a repetitive phenomenon. It is a way to cope with life. So runaways mostly come back. Missing people and kidnapped people have a very, very poor ratio to come back as compared to runaways. Runaways like to go and like to come back. It is a repetitive phenomenon.
Dr. Saab, I would like to ask you that does economy play a part in, economics play a part in people running away? You constantly hear about men abandoning families, their wives, their children, and just disappearing. So is it a stress? You hear about people killing themselves because they couldn't take on the responsibility of a family. So does that play true to runaways as well?
Economy does not play any role in runaways. It is the interaction, it is the communication, it is the kind of listening people give to each other which plays a greater role in the runaway phenomena. Runaway is actually a cycle. Initially, the cycle takes place a little longer gaps between one runaway and another runaway, but when the runaway becomes repetitive in nature, you can clearly anticipate the next phase of the cycle. And there are 3 phases in a cycle of a runaway. First phase is the blast, when the person runs away, and the second phase is when the Prince Charming comes back. He comes back and he is welcomed back, and he starts living in a peaceful manner for a while, and then there is a build up of neurotransmitters because of the interaction of the person with the family, and there are constant irritations in the families. There are the families taking the stands, the person is refusing to accept the stands, and then he builds up to a runaway, and then there is again a runaway blast. So these three phases are very, very clear-cut phases in which family people run away and come back and then build up to run away again. And a cycle, if you want to interrupt a cycle, it is easy to interrupt it at a phase which is easier to interrupt, and that is when the person comes back. And that is the time to talk to the person on this subject, and you have to talk assertively, and you need to maintain that love and respect
And
all the time while you talk
use
to the
counseling
person.
as well. I think the whole family could do with some counseling at that
Yes,
point.
family needs to go into the counseling, and it is mandatory that you are in constant touch with the professional, because if you want to reduce the damage coming out of a runaway, you need to consult a counselor in this connection.
So first of all, does 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐻 Ways provide counseling services
Yes,
for the family?
𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐻 does provide services.
And then
for
if
that.
we as individuals, I mean, if there are people watching the show out there, what can we do if not just for our own families, but basically to generally raise the awareness level? And I mean, you always have some sort of agenda that, you know, this can be done by general public as well. This sort of responsibility can be taken up. What about runaways?
It is very easy to create this kind of awareness in the families that we need to talk to each other. We need to prevent that communication gap which starts existing in the families. We need to listen to each other, and moreover, when we talk to the other person, we don't need to vent our anger. We don't need to talk even when we are angry. We can wait for a while, and when we are a little relaxed, then we can talk to each other. We can prepare ourselves before talking, and we can definitely tell our observation to the other person without attacking on his personality. We don't have to make him wrong. We don't have to make us right also. And if we talk in the language of I language, then I think it will work better. If we would talk to the other person in you language and accuse him of certain things, it will end up
And the
nowhere.
third stage would set in. So before we break off, is there a volatile age bracket for when runaway behavior tends to be at its maximum and parents need to watch out for it?
Yes, it is the teenage.
All right.
Most people run between 13
Absolutely.
and 19, and 6 out of 1 adults, they run away from their home between the age of 13 and 19.
One
And
out of 6.
1 out of 6. And we need to concentrate on this fact, and we need to understand that young people are undergoing identity crisis also during
So they
their
have that
adolescence,
baggage as well.
and they have lot of things in their mind. They are cooking up lot of stories in their mind, and they have a communication gap with their family,
course.
and we need to mend that communication gap first.
So teen years are the key years, as always.
As
I mean,
always, the notorious teen years. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
Dr.
sir.
Saab.
Thank you
It's
for
been
being
very enlightening, actually. We were thinking that economy and economics and, you know, there are a lot of different triggers that work to it, but it really is just about the environment at home. It is about
And
personalities bouncing off each other.
I like what you said about toxic personalities.
Yeah.
I think there are people who are toxic.
Absolutely.
And
And some of them are very sacred in the families. Parents, the
Yeah.
grandparents, sometimes they are trying to be toxic, and they feel entitled to produce toxicity for their family members.
That's very interesting. So, why do they like to create toxicity?
They
and
don't know they are doing it.
They don't know they're doing it.
They don't mean it. They are very well-meaning people, but they just don't know that they are trying to be toxic, and they actually are trying to be well-meaning people, but they are
There
becoming
also वही
toxic.
बात है, I think, in our society like ours, and I wanted to ask you, but the conversation would have gone out of hand. The same sort of behavioral tendencies that would lead to suicide, is that the same package as that would lead to
Yeah,
runaway?
Yes. Ultimately,
Behavior.
when somebody keeps on running away and the problem is not
So
solved,
the eventual
then
escape
they
is
learn
suicide.
helplessness, and helplessness ultimately leads to suicide tendency.
All right.
Dr. Saab, what can family members do to help runaways?
Family members can do a lot of things to prevent runaways in their loved one, and they can talk to him in a very, very smooth manner. They can prepare themselves first, and then they can talk to him when he is calm and they are themselves calm. Apparently family members seem to do lot of things to prevent the runaways. They try to prevent runaway all the time, but seeming to do something is not doing, and trying to do something is not doing. Doing is doing. And if you talk to the person in a structured manner, the structured intervention is something which family members can learn first from a professional, and then they can talk to the person. And the right moment to talk to the person is when he comes back from a runaway, because that is the time when family is basically reluctant to talk to him, because they think that in this way they can instigate another runaway at the same time. But the reality is that runaway needs a refractory time also. When somebody comes back, there is hardly any chance of him running again, and he can definitely be more comfortable talking on this subject. But you can never prevent a runaway when the blast stage is approaching and then somebody has to run away.
That's very interesting to know that you know, one has to avail the opportunity to talk to them when they come back home and they've already experienced the runaway experience and are now beginning to feel settled again in their family.
Actually, it is a window of opportunity which opens when the person comes back. And if we do not avail this opportunity, the window is going to be closed very soon, and then day by day it will become difficult to prevent a runaway, and ultimately the same thing will happen again. The good thing and the bad thing about things happening in cycle is that they are repetitive. This is the bad part, and the good part is that they have a weak phase where you can always interrupt the cycle. So we should look for a weaker phase of a cycle in many things, because there are things which go on happening in cycles, and the weakest phase of the cycle is actually the strongest phase also. But it is your opportunity for intervention. It is the best opportunity to interrupt the weakest phase of a cycle, and when a cycle is broken at any of its phase, it's broken forever.
Thank you. On that note, thank you very much, Dr. Saab. Thank you.
I feel our generation is living in that limbo. We are still there are traditional values thrust upon us, but we also are exposed to ideas and psychologies from abroad, and new ideas coming up about communication with children, which is essential. What is interesting to notice is that there has to be a balance in this parenting business, such that we retain our traditional values and we move ahead as well, and we learn to predict as such.
Even if we don't learn to predict, Mariam, I think the point is that, you know, it is so important for us to keep an open communication, to watch out for little signs. You know, I mean, I don't have children, but I am married. I can tell in a minute if my husband's had a bad day or a good day, if I should be quiet now, am I pushing it?
You're a child to another.
But everyone has those little instinctive things. So listen to your gut. And I would just say, you know, keep a very, very friendly, I'm saying respectful, but a friendly atmosphere in your house, so that, you know, I personally can imagine that the day I am a parent, I would like to know what my children are going through, rather than be oblivious and hear from other people.
Do you know what one thing our psychologists talk to us about, and again, I am a parent, I'm not being preachy towards you, but there comes that time when you do, your words are, I'm not going to talk to you till you fix it. Seriously, what she said are the words that we use, and those are the complete, you know, those are the words that you don't want to be using, is what she said. The solution to that? Keep learning. Change.
That is a great point. And if you feel there needs to be a change in your life, in our lives, there's something you want to talk about, please do write to us at the First Class at dawnnews.tv. We're always open to suggestions and new ideas. I will also at the same time say, Mariam, I'll go ahead this time first and say, have a wonderful day. Hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to talking to you again in your homes tomorrow.
Yes, we hope to see you again tomorrow. So go forth and conquer the world.
Bye-bye.
Bye.